So, as I said, we have 15 questions and maximum questions are for Ramdev ji, but I'll take some of the most important ones. What I'll do is I'll take two questions each and then come back right from where I started. So, we'll start with Ramdev ji himself. And the first question, sir, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, first question, sir, is MOMC funds have been the best performing funds for 5 years in a row till 2018. I think it was completely tailwinded for MOMC and QGLP style. What has changed since then that drove the underperformance of the funds, and what will drive the performance back in your view?
Is the best question I would say of the and actually again we'll be speculating in what I say. I mean, I was aware that performance is one thing which you cannot buy in the marketplace. You have to आप जो कर्म करेंगे उसका ही फल मिलेगा. So but I didn't know when I started in 14 that we are going to have 14, 15, 17% compounded outperformance of 4 years. So there was something more than just the practicing of QGLP that we are doing actually more deeply now. But at that point of time, maybe the external environment was much better, much more conducive for this style of investing. It was a classic high quality growth investing. And my sense is that between 14 to 18, the economic growth was much more predictable and much more remained, I would say it was much better. The underlying belt was moving, and hence the companies were doing the way we are expecting. Hence there was a performance. Second, what happens is once your outperformance is there, from that top buy and hold, what happens is the same companies broadly stay in your portfolio. So now there is a churn in the market and you stay with the same companies. So say if Eicher has gone up from say 6,000 crores to say 80,000 crores. So all the gains have gone in the first 4 years, and the decline from 85,000 crores to say 50,000 crores, that going half or maybe 60% decline, that has all come in second part. So I mean, this is all learning that so it's kind of so it's a part of the deal, So correction in the companies, individual companies holding, in buy and hold you cannot get best of the stock forever. You have to also take care of the bad part of the stock movement. So it will keep correcting, and then when lot of companies they correct because the economic forces are not behaving the way you thought, and hence you stayed with the portfolio. We thought that economic growth of 7% will continue from 18 to 19 to 20 and 21. But what really happened? So we paid too much for the growth at that point of time, and growth didn't turn out. So I think we are now the stock price itself has corrected. Bulk of the stock prices have corrected, and now our portfolios are showing we are much more aligned, and we have made changes where again we'll capture the growth of the future. But at what point of time? I mean, quite possible it can happen from tomorrow. If by chance economy goes into a predictable mode for next 4-5 years, probably our growth strategy might work fantastically well. But I don't have a definite view that it will happen like this. But it will happen, because underperformance is something which makes every single public manager learn the most. So I think जितना हमने अभी 3 साल में सीखा है वो कभी जिंदगी में नहीं सीखा in terms of managing money. So and still learning, and still I mean I would say I'm the ultimate disciple of investing right now of the public money. I mean I wish I had private money, but I think really winning in the public money, I think you should give not 1 gold medal, you must give 10 gold medals to the guys who win in managing public money, because there are challenges of managing size and public aspirations. So I think it's a big task, and we have to be very humble, very we have to be very patient and keep learning, and at some point of time we'll find the traction.
Yeah. And I think those learnings are reflecting in the changes in the portfolio and recovery in the performances. And clearly, markets are cyclical and styles are also cyclical. Manager styles are cyclical. We had some great years of performance followed by a few years of underperformance, and then it will be followed by great years again, which Ramdev ji is suggesting. Which takes me to the second question, Ramdev ji, more to do with markets. So the question is that the markets have become a lot more broad-based in the recent past, and sectors like capital goods, state-owned firms, as well as some of the material companies doing exceedingly well after a very long time. Do you have an open mind to align with these new trends? And would companies in these sectors also qualify under the QGLP frameworks?
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, any company which is QGLP is qualified. I mean, we are sector agnostic, market cap agnostic. I mean, it can be a mid cap, it can be a small cap, it can come from any sector. Why? I mean, it is for the manager to figure out whether he understands the stock can double in 3 years or 4 years. That's the only. I mean, buy quality company and buy something which you think will double in 3-4 years. That's the only directive to the managers. And the managers themselves, they are working very hard. I mean, everybody is individual in their own capacity. So nobody is orchestrating everybody to buy this stock only. But put together, they are all in team and they are trying to find stocks which are going to double in 3 years. I mean, that's the thing, because I think if we are able to double the portfolio in 5 years, I think that's a wonderful thing. But for putting an aspiration of doubling in 5 years, I have to pick up stocks which are going to double in 3 or 4 years, so that even if we go slip for some reason, external or internal, we should be able to meet the aspirations of the people. So clearly that's the effort, because at the end of it, we don't know what the market is going to do. We have to figure out what we are going to do. So that's what other day I was telling, how much time we are spending in our own portfolio today, what portfolio we have, and how much we are spending on what the market is doing or what are the new ideas. I think we have to spend a lot more time on trying to figure out what we have with ourselves, and buying more of what is going to do better, and shedding a little bit of what is not going to do so well, and embracing, of course, new ideas, new churns which are coming up at the margin. Definitely, yes. So there is nothing stopping from getting into any category, whether it is digital, whether it is commodity, whether it is cyclical, deep cyclical, metals or whatever. Nothing stops us so long as companies.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I'll move on to Manish. So the next question, and my questions to fund managers will be more fund specific. So I spoke about NTDOP PMS, 13 years of track record, 5% of outperformance, 9 years of zero drawdown. So I think from 2009 to 2018, 0 year of drawdown, 24% compounding. But 18, 19, 20 were not very kind to NTDOP. Obviously, Manish, you also had certain learnings, and there were some changes which happened in the portfolio, which has reflected in the recovery of performance on a one year basis. So clearly, things seem to be turning around, but there is underperformance on 3 or 4 year. So all the changes what you have made, what do you think? What is going to drive NTDOP back to its past glory in the next few years time frame?
So Akhil, I reiterate, and I've said this many times before as well, that outperformance or underperformance is a derived number. I have never chased performance. When you talked about from 2007 to 2018 one-way journey, it was just adhering to the principle by which we actually manage money, right? And that has driven what it has. The idea is focused to deliver absolute returns, absolute wealth for clients, and we get those performances in absolute terms. And it has happened that from 2007 to 2018, we have got an outperformance as well. I think the principles or the philosophy process of investing has not changed one bit. So from 2000, let's say 18 to 20, there have been a few things which have happened, and I've been slightly late in reacting to that. One is basically valuation correction in some of the very highly valued stocks, right? So you need to be on your toes at all given point in time. I mean, that's it. So maybe the automobile sector being correlated to the economy, we had an overweight position, it corrected. And, we had the mid-cap, the broader segment of the market, which went into a tailspin post-2018. 50% of the, to multi-cap, we have 50% allocation. Nobody forced us to have that sort of an allocation. We could have shifted to, let's say, broadly large-cap allocation. We did not see valuation correction. and we would have been good. But true to multi-cap, we stick to 50% allocation to large cap, 50%. And there is, where we saw valuation. So that is one aspect. Then came COVID, some of the mid-cap financials, etc., where we had some exposure, went into a tailspin because growth was impacted. Obviously, valuation follows growth, and that got impacted. We had to make necessary changes, so on and so on. So I think, as far as the earnings on the portfolio stood good over these last 3 years as well. And it came in at between 18 and 20% ballpark, in that period. Valuation compression was one of the major reasons. And, then the COVID impact has come. But as we look forward, I think, given the situation that we are in and the outlook that we have going forward, we have made a few sectoral changes, like going over on IT, which seems to be a very secular theme, or let's say healthcare, which seems to be a very secular theme. Consumer, obviously, is an evergreen story, both on discretionary and staples. Favor more discretionary as opposed to staples, given valuation and the open up trade elements going forward. And again, structural nature of the businesses, unleveraged nature of the businesses that we manage, and a decent price. Between 2018 and 2021, the peg on the TDOP portfolio has come to half. So we are very cognizant about the growth, and we endeavor to achieve that 18 to 24% compounded. But we are very mindful of the prices that we want to pay, and so there is extreme conservatism that has broadly changed between then and now. And I think this change that we have brought about, these learnings that we have had in the last 3-4 years, will help us in good stead going into generating absolute returns and relative returns into the future.
It certainly looks like, I think, clearly reflecting in the recent performance, and I hope all goes well for you and the portfolio. I'll take one more question because, and for all our partners and investors, they would have this question on the India Opportunity Portfolio, which is a small cap portfolio you have been managing. And obviously, last 3 years, small caps went through a huge correction, and then there has been very good recovery. But the participation in the recent recovery or the recent rally of small cap by India Opportunity Portfolio has not been as much as one would have expected, or like your other IOP V2 did. So any thoughts on India Opportunity Portfolio?
Look, this segment of the market is very, very volatile. We have all seen what happened in 2016 and 17, run up to 2018, and the crash that followed. Excesses are created on both sides in this segment of the market much more than the rest of the pack, right? So, currently the last one, I was clearly of the opinion post-COVID that small cap universe is the place to be in and move one level down from a large cap to a mid cap, from a mid cap to a small cap, because you were creating extremes on the other end. Now we are creating extremes on the other end, on the positive side. Idea is to manage risk at all points in time. Even if we generate lesser returns than the index, absolute returns on a 1 year forward basis or even on the current basis, 2021 is not bad. And please, this segment of the market, there is a chasing of huge momentum, which will not be lasting. And if you get carried away in this whole thing, not only will the absolute returns disappear, you will be left with negative absolute returns like the period that we saw from 18 to 21, because we created excesses in 2018, right? So, idea is to have return of capital first, then return on capital. And return on capital is not bad. And I know for sure that the India Opportunities portfolio, both the V1 and V2 option, is a very safe portfolio. You will make absolute returns on the companies that we have in that portfolio, right? And we are on a valuation wise, again, less than half the valuation that we are in 2018. So there will be absolute returns in the portfolio. Idea is not to chase momentum, euphoria, froth, because the ultimate outcome is not good. You can't have a 127% small cap return and then a 10%, again an absolute return in the month of April, and again something like that in the month of April. I mean, these are things too good to be true. Sooner or later, you will see that sort of a bloodbath that we saw post 2018. And by the way, when the markets were correcting, we were seeing huge outperformance. But at that point in time, and even now, absolute returns matter. So it's a trade-off between the risk that you want to take, the absolute returns that you want to get, and obviously outperformance or underperformance is a big function of the benchmark, which in today's times is out of whack. That's a clear understanding that I have, at least.
Sure. So that's encouraging. So moving on to Siddharth. Siddharth, the first question I'll take is of the fund which you've been managing for 7 years now. The first fund which was launched at MOAMC in 2013, the Focus 25 fund. And I was just seeing the numbers. Focus 25 fund is now ranked number 1 since inception on 7-year basis, ranked number 4 on 5-year basis, and number 3 number 7 on 3-year basis. So clearly top quartile on 1, 3, 7 years basis. So definitely something has gone absolutely right. And I think your presentation, we always put this slide that you've been able to identify tomorrow's winners today. So would you want to share your thoughts, how you managed F25 and your outlook on the fund?
I think for F25, right from the beginning, our thought was to carry on the legacy that some of our other funds had already created, whether you look at the value fund or whether you look at the NTDOF. And we had, one of the very thought of launching the active mutual fund was that we will try and do something similar to what we have done in the PMS, so that, what we were offering to HNIs, we could offer to retail investors on a MF platform. So right from the beginning, there were 2-3 things which were very common. This was the only large cap mutual fund which had almost like 50-60% as active management. And on an average, we've had 21-22 stocks versus when you look at our peers, it would be more like 50-60. So it was always a very concentrated portfolio. It wasn't always an active portfolio. And, we have always followed the principles by which, we said we'll be managing it, which would be the QGLP. And hence, those things have worked well for us in F25. And what you said is right, that, we've had some good winners there. And they again have been, in the same, in the same kind of a trend, which, we've got in some of the other ones, which is trying to capture some of the mega themes that Ramdev ji mentioned, which is whether it be the value migration one, where a lot of our financialization theme came, and whether it be the one on the NTDOF, which is the next $1 trillion essentially, which talks about the increase in disposable income as your per capita income increases. So those have been some of the factors which have helped us on F25. And as we look forward, I think our focus has been again on 2 things. One is firstly focus on complete capital protection, and the other is typically our mindset of all the fund managers. We are wired at thinking of trying to identify companies where downside is limited, and essentially you have some visibility as to how it would double in 3 to 4 years, and that's what we are looking at.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Moving on to Sushmit. So one question to you. You started raising money in your AIF last year. We launched 2 AIFs, and you were particularly quite keen to participate in the small and mid cap rally much early on. So what prompted you to decide that you need to be over allocated towards mid and small cap and lesser towards large cap in the last year? Obviously that has played out as well, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the simplest thought is, when we were doing our bottom-up research, the value and the upside that came through in mid and small cap was comparatively much higher than large caps, right? And I think Manish pointed towards that you got some opportunities in 2020 in mid and small cap, which were quite unbelievable. If you now when we look back at those stock prices that were there in 2020, you will think, why don't you back up your truck, as they say, and fill it? So I think that's really what the thought came from, which is when we were doing bottom-up analysis, some of the mid and small caps looked quite unbelievable in their pricing. The second aspect is there is a little bit of I would say behavioral cyclicality also that plays out in the markets, which is in 2017 Nifty was the easiest index to beat. Everybody bought mid and small caps. In 2020, Nifty was the toughest index to beat. Everybody bought large caps, right? So I think whenever you see the crowd moving towards a certain part of the market, you know that there's a lot of value left in the other part of the market. So I think that's what kind of was the second marker for us. Unfortunately, I would say that things have gone up much faster than what we thought, and hence we've not been really able to deploy much more money than we wanted to deploy a lot more money than we actually deployed. Not that we were sitting on cash, but just the drawdown structure of the AIFs that we had. But I think it was pure bottom up. Look at where most of the crowd was heading towards. And I think today, if you ask me, it's on balance right now. You can't say that people are gushing towards mid or small caps or people are gushing towards large cap. We're somewhere in the middle right now. So I think it's that tough zone where it's not easy to take a call as to what to do with your allocations.
Would you continue with over allocation towards mid and small, or you'll try to balance it out?
No, I think Akhil, as Manish and Ramji pointed out, our biggest learning in the last 3 years is you have to be mindful of the growth ahead and also the price you are paying for that growth, right? Frankly, what Mr. Buffett said, that a company does not know whether it is mid cap, small cap, large cap, or is the a gentleman who's managing the fund or a lady who's managing the fund, right? These are all tags that we give them. So, if you just look at the company from a bottom-up perspective, and if you think that the next 3 years of growth is still left and it's available at a reasonable price, then we will continue to hold on irrespective of the cap. Ideally, we would want to buy 20 small caps and exit them as 20 large caps, but that may not happen all the time. So, we've seen that even if you get 3 out of 20 to go from small to large, you have a massive portfolio return sitting. So, I think be mindful of what the growth is, be mindful of the price, and, rather than paint it with small, mid, large.
Great, absolutely. So, Ramdevji, coming back to you, very interesting question out here. So, Motilal Oswal Group has invested over 3,000 crores of its own wealth in the asset management products. Alongside, we have also released our campaign, Skin in the Game. I think we are one AMC where we have maximum skin in the game. Can you explain your thought process behind this campaign, and what should investors conclude from this action and campaign?
See, the advertisement itself says, we eat what we cook, So that's the thought process. And if I don't have faith in my own products, my own managers, it's the end of the game. So, we have 100% faith. Actually, I have faith in equity per se. If you ask me, I am willing to give any guy who has a 100% integrity and some competence in managing equity in India, I'm willing to give my any amount of savings to them. And here we are talking about right under me, under QGLP framework. I'm managing private equity, I'm managing public equity, and all brilliant managers there with 15, 20 years of experience. What more you want? So, and equities, at times you have to be lucky also. See, compounding happens over a period of time, and sometimes, you are, sometimes you're on top of the market, sometimes the market is on top of it. But, my faith in equity is 100%, and my faith in my managers is 100%. So that's a combination, and that's why I am very, very comfortable. Today it is 3,000 crores. and I'm quite sure in five years time, the total will be more like I don't know. It should be closer to 10,000 crores. So I think it will just increasing year after year. Maybe the managers could be different. Maybe we'll come out with some special products. But I would hate to go out of my office to manage my own savings. So that's a thought process, and that also what do you call brings to the point that to the outsiders, I have 100% faith. 100% of savings is going in my own products. Other guy can at least chip in 2%, 3% of their savings. At least the down integrity is not there. See, the mistakes will be there, but you can see you can question my competence on that particular stock, but you cannot question my integrity, because the deepest hurt out of that mistake is me, not the other guy. So I mean, on the integrity issue, I think the fund house should be scoring highest because the skin in the game is highest.
Yeah. And connected to this, as being the largest investor in your own fund, what is the return expectation of your board from these funds?
It's unlimited, but we double in 5 years. I think it is a lot of money. I mean, on 3,000 crores, you make 3,000 crores just sitting. It's not a small amount of money, yaar. I mean, like in fixed income, what are you getting? 5-6%. And see, it's a question of getting 2 or 3 multi-baggers in the portfolio. But by choice, we want to make all 20 companies as a multi-bagger. But at least उसमें 2-3 भी strike करेगा. I mean, no downside. And if you have 2-3 multi-baggers or slightly accelerated kind of a growth, that growth in the companies come not because of the company itself doing well. It is also a question of tailwind. You see the broking companies. Today, they are not growing at 50-60% because of their own competence or size of the opportunity. It is just that tailwind is very strong. There are 5 lakh customers coming every month into the system. So you see what is the daily turnover which is going to be. Yesterday I saw it was 54 lakh crores. I don't know, today is Thursday. So you see, I don't know, it must be 100 lakh crores or something today. So what I'm saying is that it is the tailwind, the role of the tailwind. And that's why I said, what can stop us from reaching that 2 lakh Sensex is the tailwind in the economy. If economy grows for whatever reason, that's 8%. I'm telling you'll be surprised it might happen even before that. So, tailwind in the economy, tailwind in the stocks you have, tailwind in the style, and some of the stocks becoming lucky. That's it. But luck भी क्या है, आपको रोज नहीं आएगा. आप 10 साल तक बैठ रहे होगे तो 4-5 साल आएगा. और वो 4-5 साल कब है, वो किसी को नहीं मालूम. वो नेक्स्ट लेवल से आपका प्रोसेस सही होना चाहिए. आपको बैठना पड़ेगा, पेशेंस लाना पड़ेगा. And we don't have patience. I mean, the unfortunate thing is with public money, we have little less patience. And that's why the private investors, they win big time. Nobody's questioning them. They can buy and hold it forever. I mean, I have enough in my own portfolio, personally. 1 or 2 stocks I bought for 20 years. And they've given 27-28% compounded. Because it was bought very cheap and I sat through all the bad time of the company. Every company will have bad time. So, I mean, how much I can practice in public money, what is good for the investing is the key challenge. And we have to be sitting with the people who believe in this process, because I cannot have buy and hold for a long time, and in that buy and hold for a long time, 10 years, there will be 3-4 years of underperformance in the stock market, not in the company. Company will do every 10 years, out of 10 years. But there will be 4 years when company will do accelerated growth in the stock price, and there will be 3-4 years when it will be actually correcting. But in that correcting phase, should I be out?
Yeah.
That's the key question. You would want me to be out of that. That cannot be done in buy and hold. And then again, we are talking focus strategy, 20-25 companies. So you are way away from the market. The deviation is highest. Deviation is highest on the upside as well as on the downside. So we have to, so I'm pretty comfortable being allocated. Sometimes, 2-3% below. Index is not end of the world. Ultimately, your daughter's marriage is not going to happen with the index outperformance. You need actual performance, भाई. 15% जब पैसा डबल होगा, बहुत हो गया यार. बहुत हो गया. बताया ना, 12% भी बहुत है. बट 15% तो मतलब बहुत एस्पिरेशनल है. सब लोग सोच रहे होंगे, सिद्धार्थ सोच रहा होगा कि ये तो क्या है, टेंशन है बोले समझे 15%.
Yeah, I think you've answered multiple questions in the previous question. So the mood thing is you will continue to add more money, more of your personal savings, more of the free cash.
It's autopilot. I use it like an OD account or draft account. I have commitment to pay somebody 30-40 crores, but I'll pay the day on which that due it falls. 2 days before that I'll redeem. And if I get any excess money even during this period, I will again deposit here. So I mean, see my comfort with equity. I have seen, as I said, I have seen 500x in this market. मतलब कैसे टाइमिंग करोगे यार आप? और आप देखो ना हम कितना बुलिश बात की. ऐसा नहीं कि मेरे को बता रहे हैं सबको गुमराह करने का है, मेरे को खराब लग रहा है लेकिन मैं बोल रहा हूँ. नहीं, मेरे को एक्चुअल में जो लग रहा है वो लिखा हूँ मैं. So actually, I mean, when I see $600 billion of reserve and what can happen with a enterprising and courageous political setup, quite crazy. This world is very rich, filthy rich, even more rich. So the opportunity size for India is going to just explode.
Correct. This might be a repetitive question. You've answered somewhat when it comes to performance, underperformance and all, but still I think a lot of investors and distributors do ask me time and again that in the last 1 year, more specifically this last 1 year, forget MOAMC, but all active managers have underperformed, whether large cap, whether mid cap, small cap, multi cap. 80% of the fund managers have underperformed. So it's very it's difficult to understand and comprehend because investors have the expectation of you outperforming the market. And here you have virtually 80% of the active managers underperforming. How do you read in this? I mean, what is causing this drastic kind of underperformance as compared to benchmark? Whether it's Nifty 50, Nifty 500, Nifty mid cap, Nifty small cap, any one of you. Ramji, starting with you, Siddharth, Manish, Sushmit, you can add your views on this.
So after Ramdev says, I will say.
My sense is that, see, one is that the animal against which you are checking my performance, that itself is unpredictable. So if some crazy animal is running or is there and you are racing, so you don't know what he's going to do. Is it going to be slumping? Is it going to be accelerating? आपको लग रहा है कि भाई दुनिया डूबने वाली है. अब मालूम पड़ा कि highest growth happens. 85%, 70-80% performance in the index. So when we saw the COVID, we tried to become a little safe कि भाई हम डूब मत जाएगा. लेकिन डूबने मतलब but बाजार went into complete hyper growth. अभी क्या करोगे आप? You took one position कि भाई the world is going to end. Like we thought that government will be bankrupt. Actually, government is bankrupt, but who knew that there will be biggest monetary push is going to come, monetary and fiscal push all over the world. And today, it changed the complete profile of the government finances and what they can do. So the stock we sold because government will not have money is looking to be the most attractive company. So unpredictability of the situation led to unpredictable results in whatever you did. And actually, if we had done nothing, for the post-COVID, at least some of the funds would have done much better than what we did. So I would say wrong reading of what can happen in next 12 months, 18 months post-COVID was one of the reasons for which the active managers' performances are kind of not explainable in the sense that they've not been able to beat the index because index was not predictable.
Right.
So I'll just add to this. Of course, whatever Ramdev says is perfectly all correct. And the world's biggest fund manager today are the central banks. Right? That is the major cause. Nobody has a handle on. Look at what is happening in cryptocurrency. Nobody knows what the value of, let's say, Bitcoin is. These meme stocks in the US. No profit, no loss, no balance sheet. Stock is up 100, 200. So, whole lot of crazy things are happening in the global marketplace. You have abruptly high amount of liquidity, which is leading to a plethora of unimaginable things, which, as individuals, it has become extremely difficult. So, in these times, one has to remain rational when the entire environment has turned very irrational, thanks to some very irrational things that have happened over the period post the pandemic. Right? We are not in a normalized world situation, but we have to meander through this situation very rationally. Markets can remain irrational for a very long period, but ultimately it is all tol mol ke bol. It will come down to what it was. So one who stays sane and rational in this unprecedented times will eventually come out winner. For that, one needs to have a very strong mind in terms of temperament and gumption to do what you think is right. And ultimately, over a period of time, if you are proved right, the market will follow.
Sushmit, Siddharth, very quickly, you want to add 1 or 2 lines on this?
Yeah. Siddharth, you want to go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I think this whole premise that our job is to beat the benchmark itself, I don't know where it originated from. We attempt to beat the benchmark, right? So I think that is, we attempt to beat, we have a philosophy, we invest using that philosophy. And as Manish rightly said, it is mathematics, right? So you perform and fund minus index is equal to a number. So sometimes we perform better than the index, sometimes we don't perform better than the index. In fact, I think if you look at the data from 97 to 2001, the number of funds that underperformed index was 99. It was much bigger than what we are today. Because please remember, at that time, there was no free float concept. It was just market cap. So Wipro had gone to 22% of the index, right? And then tried to beat the index when the price was going up 100% a month. So I think, index is purely a price play, not a value play. And we fund managers, unfortunately, are supposed to use their brains and figure out the value of some companies and then act on it. So I think whenever you see extreme concentration of weight of an index, as investors, please be very, very careful, right? And just one more thing is, which I find it very funny, which is that you can't invest in an index without paying something. So we get compared to Nifty TRI, while you can't invest in Nifty TRI, right? You have to buy an index fund or an ETF, it costs you money, there's a transaction charge and so on and so forth, right? There's a tracking error. So, so I think somewhere, maybe I hope we are able to convince our regulators to probably compare us to TRI minus a few basis points, and suddenly you will see a large part of the mutual fund universe start outperforming that metric. So yeah, I think
I'll just add to what Sushmit is saying. The way some of the companies are coming in the index, I won't take names, but it defies all logic. A sane person cannot buy those companies at the market caps at which they're trading, but they do tend to go up every day.
Yeah,
doesn't make sense at all.
Sushmit, in your next blog, you do explain what you explained. I think people will like to read.
No, actually, Mr. Buffett said it in this news, in his letter this time. We aim to earn a lot, but can never do enough. I think to me, that is the defining line for people like us. We will always earn a lot. And as Ramduji said, doubling in 4 years or 5 years is a lot. But somebody else will always do better. So you decide you want a lot, or you always want to chase the best. So frankly, I think, and every manager would agree with us. Even the index at some point will agree with us. Trust me. Maybe in the next 1 or 2 years.
Right.
Again, I'll also, I'll just add one point here. I think, when you talk about a lot of managers failing to beat index, I think one thing which comes across is that, how you are measuring that. Typically, you bring it down to a predefined 1 year, or you choose one particular year. So, just to give you a case in point, if you look at most of our funds, whether it be on the PMS side and all, since inception, they would have handsomely beaten index over their lifetime and so on by 3%, 5%. Depending on, which fund you're looking. Now, the issue which happens is that, if you're buy and hold, when you are comparing me on a, say, April to March, you're choosing that period, but, that's not the way we are running the fund, that, okay, today is April. So, whatever we are holding, let's just sell off and let's see how we can beat the index for the next 12 months. That's not so. It's how you choose the period based on which you are deciding whether fund manager is able to beat index or not is also an issue. So if you use a 3-year period or if you use since inception, sometimes the answers would be very different. And I think that's what you should do, because it's not a game we get into every 1st of April that okay, now how do we beat the next 12 months? Because I don't think most of the fund managers are doing that. But unfortunately, many people look at it like that. Okay, 12 months, what did you do?
Yeah.
And I'll just add one point, Akhil. I mean, everybody strives to become rich, and we are going to help our clients become rich. But trying to help our clients become rich very quickly, that is what we have seen over the last 1.5 months, is fraught with risk. And it's dangerous. So understanding risk in the field of investing, whether at the fund manager level or at the client level, is of paramount importance.
And Akhil, if I may, just one last point on this subject, because this is something which is very critical. So if you look historically as to how some quality portfolios do, and how generally they get their outperformance, typically most of the outperformance comes by having a very good down capture. Down capture means that how much the market fell and how you did that, because that's the characteristics of a high quality portfolio, that when market falls sharply, you kind of don't fall that much and you're able to protect capital, because that's our entire focus. So whenever you compare a very quality fund in a extreme beta up rally, or when market is going berserk, those funds, I'm not just talking of our fund, but across any fund, whether you take a Buffett's fund or any high quality one, they will look like they're just not living up, because they would not do the same kind of thing which is needed in a high beta crazy rally. But what happens is we all know the history, so this doesn't last like for very long. And as and when this turns around, the down capture of these funds is so much that when you look at it on a longer term basis, that's when we get our alpha, and that's where we earn our outperformance.
Correct. I think good arguments, and I would propose a 1-hour panel session on this topic.
After we start outperforming, Akhil. After we start outperforming, not when we are underperforming.
So suddenly the excitement was really interesting, and I'm getting a lot of WhatsApp messages. So Ramdevji, last question to you. You've been talking about this new concept, variant perception, a lot. So what does it mean, and how are you putting it to work at MOAMC?
Ramdevji, you're on mute.
You're muted, sir.
So this is not, conceptually, yes, that book I read, No Bull by Michael Steinhardt. So there he talks about, he's known for that particular concept. But basically, it is part of the QGLP. What he's saying is that P has to be defined. In the sense that the value price gap has to be deep. And clearly when you see an idea, it's a fun to hear the story and put your entire understanding of how the world works and how the world will work, and hence how much will be the value of the company and today at what price you are getting. So that say when I meet an analyst or any idea comes in, I have a certain perception of the company. When actually the idea comes and he explains for 10-15 minutes, then you realize, boss, of course you didn't know anything about it. And when you realize that what is the potential in your framework of the world, everybody has a different design of the world, how it is today and how it will be in the next 5-10 years. So in that world of commerce, how this particular company is going to do, it could be a very, very variant opinion to what the world is assessing today. And that's where the difference in perception and reality is where you make a lot of money. And you keep getting this kind of situation. And if we are, before just buying, we must ask, are you variant to what is the consensus or popular opinion? If you are not, in that case, very likely that you will make an average return and not a significantly higher return. The moment you realize that your opinion or your understanding of value is far higher than what market is thinking, then that's where you have the variant opinion, and you tend to make actually some kind of a multi-bagger kind of situation, depending on how variant is the opinion.
Okay. So I'll go for the last question. Again, we'll make the floor open for all of you to participate. Ramdevji in his presentation highlighted some of the risk factors. So what can spoil the party? It could be global shocks. It could be the black swan event. It could be inflation, interest rates going up. I think these are some of the risk factors. So now there is a question which has just come to me, and I'll just read quote unquote. Do you expect inflation to spoil the party? Do you think Indians will have employment in this technology era? His view, the one who's posed the question, his view is that only 20% of the world population will have job and major economies will feed the rest with helicopter money. Large companies will become larger and stock market index will do good. A slightly longish question.
What is the question?
So the question is basically, I think it is more to do with the inflation is a risk. I think obviously you have highlighted, but can it spoil the party in the short medium term?
If the COVID couldn't spoil the party, COVID turned out to be the biggest party thing. Can you believe this?
Absolutely.
The world is celebrating COVID. So you don't know what all things, how the risk, even some of the negative things which will happen, say inflation goes to the roof, say it goes to 5%, but the central bankers decide that growth is the priority, not the managing the inflation, and hence let the economy grow at 10%, and on top of it let the inflation be there. That could be a completely different kind of situation where you have the high growth, high inflation, so nominal growth is like not 12% but 15%. Corporate profit will go through the roof. Stock market will be completely on fire. So what I'm saying is how exactly these things will work, we don't know. Particularly in last 12 months, I've realized that if COVID can be celebrated by the world, by the stock market, then anything can be celebrated. And actually the reverse is that anything good happens, that can also be kind of punished. If growth comes, quite possible the world economy is working for growth, but when growth comes, quite possible markets may slump. So I don't know what is going to happen. So don't bother too much about what the world will do. We have to focus on what we do in our portfolio.